Because of rising global uncertainty, attuned neurofeedback and DBR therapists are needed more than ever. I'm Lars Validic with EEGer. With climate catastrophe, rising fascism, and growing desperation over resources, communities around the world are collapsing. It's just the beginning, and you're especially needed now for three reasons. One, you understand dysregulation. Two, your experience with neuroplasticity means that you know that adapting to change is possible. And three, you're committed to learning, to exploring healthy ways of living, even when the path is not clear. First, you're needed now because you understand dysregulation. You're familiar with these challenging states, full of overwhelm, these places so hard to navigate. You know the effects of a world of denial, microaggression, gaslighting, minimization. You see this attachment rupture, a kind of amputation of our human need to connect. You understand how our bodies respond to it. Have a sense of the many names it's been given, the hypervigilance, the reactivity, the spectrum of dissociations, terror, grief, horror, and rage, the impulse to destroy, to self-destruct, the despair and hopelessness. You've been a guide for survivors, a trusted companion, both attached and committed, with clarity that your insight and skills can never be stronger than your willingness to learn, can never be greater than your respect, your presence, your humility. As I know from talking with you, you approach these devastated lives with a calm and searching optimism, with care, with curiosity, and with a kind of reverence born of your admiration for their resilience. And to these moments, you're able to bring not only your occasionally graceful and often direct and practical ways to validate these destabilizing emotions, but you also bring an understanding of the neurophysiology that drives it, of the structure and evolution of these agonizing responses to impossible circumstances. And through mentorship and study, you've developed an instinct about the connections between behavior and electricity, between the mind and the oscillatory nature of the human nervous system, between a world of pain and what can be seen in the EEG. Working to learn the language of the brain, you've cultivated your intuition for its reward system, which offers you insight into how our brains can be coaxed and gently guided to better function, to self-care and self-regulation, even in the midst of uncertainty. This brings us to the second reason you're needed, especially now, as things look more bleak each day. Because you know that change is possible, a greater sense of calm, a greater sense of balance. We don't just crave these things, they're possible. These are moments that feel like the end, but can sometimes be the beginning. You've come to understand how recovery can happen. Occasionally humbled by the transformations you've seen, these successes have nourished your sense that these terrible loops of suffering, stuckness, frustration, can be invited to yield and open, and their tired travelers can be drawn to shift their awareness, transition to lower arousal, and sometimes eventually to step into new, more promising worlds. You have a pragmatic understanding of neuroplasticity. Over years of practice, you've come to an abiding, if cautious, confidence that a life full of torment can also begin to bloom, to flourish, that a devastating personal history is not fate. Above all, you've learned the power of the therapeutic alliance, of the trust between the therapist and client, maybe the root of self-transformation. This attachment bond, this ability to be present, vulnerable, and feel safe in relating to another person is finally the basis for relationships, for healthy relationships, and so the basis for flourishing, caring communities. And still, as I've come to understand, while you celebrate the triumphant escapes, the ones who got themselves free, you also know that the ones who remain bound indicate only the most challenging mysteries and reveal neither your own failure nor theirs. Your work with these courageous fighters has taught you and me the core skill of tenacity. With passion and open-heartedness, if one way doesn't work, you try a different approach. And third is the willingness to learn. I've been humbled by your willingness to say simply, I don't know. This is what I understand. These are the questions I have. This is how I'm thinking about it. And then I've heard you be open to suggestions, ideas, exploration. And so you are needed now because you're committed to this learning process. This tilting world will need our courage and vulnerability, our willingness to try and fail and try again. For those of you I've gotten to know in this lively community of neurofeedback practitioners, with humility and curiosity, you model a sense of wonder and urgency in the complexity of these overlapping domains, of feelings and fields, the electricity of emotion, the faintest of signals, and the most overwhelming of states. In part, this is stunning because so many of you began with a profound skepticism about this modality, not to mention an aversion, even a distaste for computers. Is this really about healing, you wondered, or is it just techno worship? You took in the anecdotes, the research evidence, and eventually found you were willing and interested. Finally, what won was your willingness to try something new yourself. The road has been neither easy nor smooth. Despite how dramatically our understanding of neurophysiology has changed, there is still too much we don't know about what works, why it works, how it works, and so on. And yet lives are being transformed. People with devastating histories are feeling more empowered. For good reason, it can be hard to actually see the changes happening. This self-regulation is what we need. This rising awareness, this willingness to learn, this vulnerability, this attentive, curious self-confidence. We need this. Our communities need this. And finally, what I most want to communicate to you all is my gratitude. Thank you for helping to build a bridge to those who've been abandoned by the stormy world. I'm honored and grateful to be doing this work with you.